Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the first of the very few videos I'll be posting in the next few days, inshallah. This would be regarding one of the most controversial verses of the Holy Quran. And that is namely in regard to the infamous verse of Surah 4, verse number 34, which is known to be the verse of the beating of the woman. As we are all aware that this particular verse has become a problem for many scholars in recent history, even though it was not as such in the past eras, because in those days the human values and human rights of the world was different then. And in light of these new human values or universal human values, the issue of the woman beating, which is alleged to have been sanctioned by the Quran, have become a problem. And in fact, many Muslims also were pondering about this and thinking about it, and they found it very difficult to accept the notion that the most important aspect of any human civilizations, that is the woman, that the Holy Book supposedly asking people to beat their woman in certain circumstances. Whatever the reason might be, beating any human being is no longer acceptable. And we all know that the Quran is for all times and all societies. Then how can you accept the idea that the human values changes? Then the Quran, what happened to the Quran? Does the Quran become a thing of the past, or something belongs to the previous generations, or something here we are missing? Well, to make it very fast, I have examined this particular verse for many years, and many opinions have really came forward, and the majority of them are trying so hard to try to find a reasonable meaning so that it would remain within the context of the Quran, and at the same time is acceptable to the new age mainstream, if you will. For example, I think in 1982, one Indian scholar, his name Ahmed Mir Ali, I believe, he had rendered a new translation of verse 34, chapter 4. Chapter An-Nisa. And he suggested that the beating in this particular verse is not a physical beating, rather it is to approach your wife in bed after abandoning them the previous step, abandon them in bed. But after abandonment, he suggests that this beating them, it should mean go back to their bed with your wives, or have an intimate relationship again after has been suspended in the previous steps. And the reason for that meaning, he believes that one of the meanings of daraba, which is to beat, is used by the Arabs in respect to the camel, the she camel, and the male camel. When they say that the male camel approached the female camel to impregnate her, they say in Arabic, darab al-naqa, meaning the male have intercourse with the female camel. Even though this meaning is a bit better than the common meaning, that is to beat a woman or a wife physically, but it still does not really, in my opinion at least, it does not fall or follow the proper contextual Arabic text of the this particular verse. So it's appeared to be, to me anyway, this is far-fetched meaning to attach it to this one. And I think this scholar, Ahmed Mir Ali, is from India, I believe. May God bless his soul. I think probably he was under the pressure of the new age demands. And then he wanted to come with an idea that is plausible. The meaning, it's plausible because it's part of the Arabic root word of the verb daraba. Excuse me for that. But then in 2006, an Iranian woman or a scholar, Dr. Layla Bakhtiar, have come up with a new translation of the Quran, and particularly translated this particular verse to mean is to abandon your wives, to leave them. And this is basically based on the one meaning of the verb daraba, which to mean to strike away. Like the Arab use the concept of the notion of strike of, let's say, workers strike, they say ضرب العمال عن العمل. The workers have entered the strike. So the same verb was used here. And that's why this lady have adopted this meaning to mean to abandon them, to go away from them. But again, after examining the semantic and the contextual semantic of this verse, for this meaning to be valid, in my opinion, that the verb ضرب in the verse 34 should have been followed by the particle or article preposition ala. So the verse would say وَضْرِبُوا, or عَنْ, meaning to say وَضْرِبُوا عَنْهُنَّ, and stay away from them. But rather the Arabic verse says وَضْرِبُوا هُنَّ. The pronoun hunna was used, which to mean them. So the beating, or so whatever the meaning might be, it fell on the woman. So that's another kind of problem. I believe Layla Bakhtiar has taken this meaning from a Syrian scholar. His name, I think, Muhammad Shahrur. He had actually suggested this meaning. And this meaning, again, does not fall within the contextual meaning of the verse, even though it may fall into the semantic possible meaning of the verb. Because there are two things in here. There's a contextual semantic of the entire text, which determines the meaning of the semantic of the verb that is involved in the text. So what does اضربوهن, or beat them, means? What is there really that we need to search and look for without being pressured by the modern or the new age values, which many of them are actually immoral, but they deem them to be moral? I'm not going to go into details with this, but obviously not because society decides something to be moral, in reality it is moral. So that is, and we've seen many examples where society adopted a value which is absolutely immoral, but they deemed it to be moral. So the same thing, staying away from the pressure of the society. And we need to look at this from a purely independent, purely scientific, linguistic standpoint. And also away from the classical views. Anyone who wants to know the classical views, then they should do their homework. That's not my problem. My problem is to look at the text that is given to us by God. That is the problem right now at hand. I will examine this verse from all various aspects, linguistically and also Quranically. Now, I think in order for us to fully appreciate the verse in question, that is, I believe, chapter 4, verse 34, I'm going to begin dissecting the verse from the beginning, because often we find people actually break away one segment, that is the segment where it says beat them, forgetting what really preceded that, and in fact they are forgetting this is a part of a verse. You cannot draw a conclusion on any text without having the entire image or the entire tapestry of something. So you have this particular segment of a verse that is to beat the woman, or beat them, as they say. It is part of a verse. So the verse in its entirety often not reported or not discussed in connection with this particular part, to beat them. So the verse begins by saying, وَالرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ وَبِمَا أَنْفَقُوا. Now the translation I'm going to use here, the most plausible translation that is really fits the Quranic Arabic text. That is to say, men are responsible, and I underline, not in charge, not superior as other translations suggest, rather responsible. Responsible has a lot more meaning than anything else, and I'll explain what it is. Men are responsible over women. You could say men are guardians over women. Protectors, also appropriate. And I'll tell you why the meanings, this one, protector, or even preserving, or even you could say sanctioning, or I'm sorry, not sanctioning, maybe has a different connotation, but it's honoring, you could say, fulfilling. And I'll explain as we go why is that meaning, which is more plausible. I'll be making these videos very short, and I will be making more and more, hopefully. For this, I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, I will connect again. I will begin from where I stopped right here. Until next time, thank you.